welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 113 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we're discussing chapter 39 of A Clash of Kings, that's Catelyn 5.
And the plan, as always, is we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader correspondence. Be sure to check out our show notes. They provide some additional information about the characters and locations in this chapter that will be particularly helpful if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little intimidated by this episode. This is a long note sheet we have here.
This is the longest note sheet we've ever had, but That's because I gave you too much rein. When I let you... You're the writer and I'm the editor in this situation. It's like...
It's the summary.
Just go and go.
The summary... This is a very summary-heavy chapter. The summary just kept going. I was like... It took me like a day and a half to finish the summary. Anyway, how are you?
I'm fine, you know. Everything's always the same with me. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, and so we're still basically not going anywhere, and days just roll into one, unfortunately.
They do.
But I do have a funny story for you.
Oh, share.
I'm not sure how funny it is. It's just kind of weird. So my mother is living with a soccer player.
Yes.
I've told you this
other way
before,
around,
yes.
I think. A soccer player is living with your mother, technically.
Yes, that's right. So he's just turned 18, and so now he's eligible for a professional contract. And my team has given him one. They've given him a 3-year contract, so it's very exciting. Yeah. That happened yesterday. I believe that means he now has to move out from my mum's, because I think that's only for pre-professionals that they set up this service.
Okay.
So anyway, that's probably coming to an end. But she said that she just got a brand new washer, and I don't think she got a dryer because she's English. They don't have dryers. She got a brand new washing machine.
I didn't know that.
Awfully we don't have room in our houses.
Okay. So it's an economy thing, not a lack of interest thing.
Yeah. My wife, every time she visits my mum, she just thinks in horror of the fact that my mother did the laundry for 2 adults and 4 children for 20 years in a house with no dryer, in a town where it rains every day.
Right. How do you ever get any? Do you guys just wear sopping wet clothes all the time?
Carson just can't believe it.
I meant economy of space, by the way, not an economy thing like financial thing. I meant space economy. Anyway, continue.
So she's so proud of this washing machine. I think it's her first washing machine for like 25 years. So she's terribly proud of it, terribly excited. And then the other day she hears like a clunking noise coming from it.
Oh, no.
And he's put his football boots in there.
The brand new washer.
It's probably for the best he's moving out, to be honest, because I think things have got a little frosty between them. But my mum described these football boots as Perspex football boots. Now, I don't know if she doesn't understand that first word. I think what she means is that these boots are slightly translucent, but she's saying Perspex, which is like a hard glass. So
he's the Cinderella of soccer players.
When we talked to my mum, he had gone to visit his own family, so he wasn't there. And we were like, "Mum, go find them. We want to see them." So she runs off to his room, and she comes back, and then she can't find them. And so this just kicks off a whole round of comedy about, well, they were invisible. They're like Wonder Woman's airplane. We laughed.
Yes, Cinderella soccer boots.
Mm-hmm. But he's a good young player, and seems like a nice lad. I mean, he's annoying my mother, but believe me, me and my siblings have already done that.
That's right. He's just following along in line.
All right, so it's a long one. Let's get down to business. How did we leave?
Let's do that.
Last time we saw Catelyn, she was desperately fleeing the scene of King Renly's murder with the disconsolate Brienne of Tarth in tow. She saw no purpose in staying in the Reach Stormland, so she's headed back to her family. Well, not Sansa, obviously, because...
Or Arya, or Bran, or Rickon.
True, but she does know where Sansa is, and she's not going there.
Right. She also knows where Bran and Rickon are, she's not going there either.
She's heading in the direction of Renly.
She is.
To be fair to her.
Compared to being in the Stormlands, she's heading in the right direction.
All right. Why don't we give them the summary, and I use the word in its loosest possible sense, of this one?
Yeah, I pretty much just copy and pasted the chapter in here, so... There we go. Take a seat, make sure it's comfortable. Catelyn and company have made excellent time, and somehow avoided the various bands of half-wild brigands that infest the Riverlands. A day's ride from Riverrun, she's met by Sir Martyn Rivers, bastard son of Lord Walder Frey. He's replaced her uncle Brendan Blackfish Tully as commander of the Outriders since King Robb took the Blackfish with him into the Westerlands. Martyn fills Cat in on the news she's missed while on the road.
Robb has had much success in the west. Her brother Edmure now rules in Riverrun. Aside from the king's victory in the Battle at Oxcross, where Sir Stafford Lannister was killed and his army destroyed and the remnants scattered, the king is also paying back the Lannisters in kind for their destruction of the Riverlands. Since they have no siege engines to siege Lannisport or Casterly Rock, the northern and river lords are raiding and pillaging the kingdom.
One final bit of news, Lord Tywin marches west from Harrenhal with all his might and should be in the area within 3 to 4 days, so they best get moving. As they ride, one question still begs an answer. How did the king take the Golden Tooth to get to the west in the first place? Turns out he didn't. Rather, it's said that Grey Wind sniffed out a goat track that took them single file around the Golden Tooth without ever being seen by those in the castle. Rumor has it Robb fed Sir Stafford's heart to Grey Wind, a rumor Cat quickly discounts.
That night, Brienne pays Cat a visit and requests leave to go. Now that Cat is in the company of her own men, Brienne says she plans to return to Storm's End to seek her revenge on Stannis for Renly's death. Cat points out that it serves nobody for Brienne to follow Renly into the grave. She instead proposes Brienne back Robb, as he shares common enemies with Renly. Brienne says she doesn't know Robb, but she could serve Cat.
Cat's a bit taken aback. She asks Brienne why her. Brienne responds that she helped her in the pavilion when the men thought she'd killed Renly. Plus, she might not be a battle commander, but she does have a kind of woman's courage. Brienne asks just one thing from Cat, that she not hold her back from Stannis when the time comes. Cat agrees, and a pledge of service is made.
The next day they arrive at Riverrun amid a river of people flooding into the castle.
You see what I did
there? She also
there?
sees the banners. I very much saw what you did there. the fact you left it in a magenta font for me was a good clue. She also sees the banners of the prominent houses of the Riverlands present and infers that Edmure must have called them back. It's then that she realises that her brother plans to fight Tywin head on. Banners aren't the only thing she sees flapping in the wind. She also notices crimson-cloaked bodies dangling from ropes over the battlements of the castle. Fear grips her heart, thinking that if one of those is Jaime Lannister, her girls are as good as dead.
Her brother rides to meet her, along with a small entourage of men in service to House Tully. After learning their father's condition is unchanged, Cat asks of word from Storm's End or Bitterbridge. It seems Stannis has besieged Storm's End, and Castellan, Sir Courtney Penrose, has sent 3 letters offering a pledge of fealty to any king who will lift the siege, minus Stannis apparently. Stannis has sworn that all might go unharmed if they yield the castle and turn over Edric Storm, King Robert's baseborn son.
Edmure says rumours fly that Cat killed Renly, or else it was a Southron woman lingering eye on Brienne. Cat dispels those rumours, but doesn't go into detail regarding the truth of his death. Instead, she changes the subject to the bodies hanging from the castle. Edmure says that they were false envoys who tried to free the Kingslayer and were very nearly successful. Thankfully, Jaime was recaptured. He now resides in a dark cell chained to the wall.
Cat also learns that before Robb rode west, he left instructions for Cat to go to the twins and learn more about his prospective future wife options. Cat has no plans to accommodate. She will be staying with her dying father until he's gone. Edmure concerns for her safety, with Tywin on the march, and them in his path. She figures they can close the gates and watch him pass by. Edmure, however, has other plans. He's instructed Roose Bolton to take Harrenhal. He sent Helman Tallheart and his 400 men from the twins to help Roose with that task. When Harrenhal falls, Edmure means to trap Tywin between Riverrun and Harrenhal.
Cat has many concerns, the first of which is that Helman Tallheart was left at the twins to keep the Freys honest. Sending him away removed that. Edmure points out that the Freys have been heavily involved in aiding Robb's cause, including Sir Stevron giving his life. Roose Bolton has recently married a Frey, and Cat has 2 of Lord Walder's grandsons who can go from wards to hostages if need be. Cat concedes, but wishes her uncle Brynden was the one making these calls, not young, inexperienced, bleeding heart Edmure.
Right. Cat leaves her brother to visit their father. Lord Hoster is in bed, but conscious. He mistakes Cat for her sister Lysa and asks if she's forgiven him. He tells her she has to marry Jon Arryn. He's her father and she'll do as he says. He tells her not to speak the name of that stripling wretched boy. He then begs her forgiveness several times before screaming in pain. Maester Vyman gives him milk of the poppy and he drifts to sleep. Vyman tells Cat he can't keep death at bay much longer.
As Cat walks back to her chamber, the same she shared with Lysa as a child, she wonders who the stripling boy her father spoke of was. Waiting for her at the chamber door is her father's steward, Eutherides Wayne, and 2 silent sisters. They've brought Ned's bones to her. Cat inspects the bones, but can't envision the man they once were. She then asks the sisters to continue their journey to Winterfell, where the bones will be laid to rest in the crypts.
Whew, that was quite the sprawling chapter.
Yeah.
Compared to most chapters, like if you think of Cat's last few chapters, her last one, she was praying in a sept and then went and talked to Renly and Brienne. The one before that, it was literally in one location, parlay, where Stannis and Renly and she talked. The chapters are usually 2 to 3 conversations, maybe 1 to 2 locations, and this was all over the place.
Yeah, although less happened in this one than in those.
That's true.
If you think about it, she just arrived back and gathered some news.
Yeah, I think Martin does a lot of his plot advancing through news rather than
which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's both a simple device to recapitulate, because there's so much going on. You've got to recapitulate some of it
right
at various points, and there isn't a single character who knows it all. So every character, you can get that character up to speed, you get us, the reader, up to speed at the same time.
Right, yeah.
And it also allows you to do the interesting thing of sort of like, we know that this happened, but this character hears that happened. Sort
right.
of like, the false rumors that rumble around the kingdoms.
Yeah.
But I will say, from Martyn Rivers, we probably got the most accurate account of the war in the Riverlands. I mean, you always have to be careful of bias, because, he's not going to say how brave and fearsome Tywin is he, at this point?
It's true.
I said the war in the Riverlands, but of course now the war has very much spread to the Westerlands.
It has, yeah.
So, as we knew, Robb has indeed destroyed Stafford's army in Oxcross, and now we hear that the great John Umber has captured several gold mines. So, capturing a gold mine is an interesting military tactic, because what is a gold mine? It's a hole in the ground,
right?
Which used to contain dirt and gold, and now the dirt and gold have been pulled out of that hole. How are you supposed to keep this thing? I mean, other than moving to the Westerlands and living in the gold mine, it's very difficult to transport that thing.
Yes, you have a good point. I guess you keep it hostage so that the Lannisters can't access the gold. That's something there. And then I guess you could take whatever gold might be on hand.
That's it. You definitely take the gold that's on hand, but that's what I would do. I would be like, I'll have today's take, please.
Right.
Move on.
And
because they're unlikely to be fortified like a castle, so it'd be hard to defend them if Tywin comes back.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. In fact, Martyn Rivers and his men attribute Tywin's march west to the capturing of these gold mines as much as anything else.
Right.
Like, one way to get a Lannister motivated is to steal his gold.
And as we talked about this, we weren't sure how Robb had gotten around the Golden Tooth, but apparently he followed a trail that Grey Wynn found, which sort of adds to the myth of the boy wolf mythology. But I will say, actually, I do wonder from your summary reminded me of how it read in the book, and I wonder if Grey Wynn knew he was leading the army. He sniffed out a goat track and he was like, "Woohoo,
goats!"
he ran up there for like 7 miles and he turned back, "What are you lot doing here?"
Yeah, I was wondering if this might have been stuff of legends, like the Lannister archers from the last Arya chapter were talking about things like giants, like Robb having giants and being more wolf than man. If this whole the wolf sniffed out this path that led them to glory thing might just be, maybe a scout knew that there was this little used goat path or something. And
well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Jon could say to Grey Wind, "Hey, can you find a path around that?" And Grey Wind might go looking. I'm not sure how much control he has.
Well, Ghost did lead Jon to Dragonglass, so right. there is a history of wolves leading their Starks, I guess.
But in that case, that was the wolf leading Jon to something that the wolf thought Jon would be interested in. Here, this relies on a degree of intelligence greater of the wolf,
yes,
Grey Wind. Because
yes,
it's literally, I need you to find a specific thing, not just dig up an interesting cache of dragonglass.
Right, which we conjectured was based on the smell of the cloak in the first place. So maybe there was a cloak on the other side of the path. But no, you're right. I mean, the Grey Wind would have to realize we can't go left here because we're going to go past the Golden Tooth. We need a alternative route that will be less visible.
You want to know how the goats get past the Golden Tooth? All right, let me show you.
And also, it's mentioned that there's a rumor that Robb cut out Sir Stafford Lannister's heart and fed it to Grey Wind. There's a little bit of element of maybe this is kind of some fantasy involved with what actually happened. But regardless of
the aftermath of battle.
Yeah. Regardless of the accuracy of it, it does seem that Robb and Grey Wind have a similarly strong bond like Jon and Ghost do.
Yes.
It's unsure whether they've got that the Bran Summer like connection, whether there's like some dream warging going on. Maybe it's possible that Robb warged into Grey Wind and discovered the path that way. We don't know. We haven't seen Robb in quite a while, so we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and plus neither Robb nor Grey Wind is a POV character, so we wouldn't get their dreams unless he happens to share them with one of our POV characters. Right.
Yeah. So don't know, but it does seem like there's a bond at least similar to Jon and Ghost going on here. Yeah.
So we got further affirmation that Sir Stafford Lannister was a bit of a dullard, an old man who didn't really know what he was doing, and it seems that way. Although, I gotta say, west of the Golden Tooth, you'd think you didn't have to set up a very careful cordon around your army. You should be safe,
Right, yeah, that's true. They were on the west side of what's supposed to be a very formidable castle guarding the road in front of you. So, yeah, way back in Cat 1, the Blackfish told Cat that Sir Stafford was he called him an old man and a bit of a dullard, which I think we've mentioned before, but also that his son Davin was the more formidable of the two. Now, we haven't heard anything about Davin. We don't know if he was with his father and also died, or if he survived, or if he wasn't with them. We don't know what the deal is with Davin, but at least the Blackfish thought he was the better of the two options.
Yeah. Now I like the idea that there's a simple sort of like test to see if the Golden Tooth has fallen. Basically, a herd of goats comes running down the
hill. See what happens. See what their fate is. But
so we hear that they're paying Tywin back in kind, and again, this could be exaggeration, but it is. Whilst the retribution has to be sweet, it mostly affects the people of the Westerlands, who are as innocent as the people of the Riverlands.
Yes, and you make a good point there. I hadn't thought about it that way. It could be just the people in the Riverlands wishing that their lords and their armies were doing it to the west what had been done to them. That's possible. Right. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, we've got things.
But some of it is definitely true. No question. I mean,
certainly, yeah. I mean, we've heard things like the Great John taking the gold mines, but also Mage Mormont is stealing like thousands of cattle and driving them back east. Now, how she's going to get past the Golden Tooth will be interesting, unless she's going to lead the thousands of cattle on the goat track.
It is a big army. They do need to eat. So true. I'm not totally surprised.
Maybe he doesn't have to go all the way back east. But also, Rickard Karstark and Galbar Galbart Glover are raiding coastal towns. Now, Rickard Karstark, he's pretty angry at the Lannisters for the death of his 2 younger sons and the captivity of his oldest son. So he's probably very much into it. I wouldn't want to be in a town being raided by Rickard Karstark in his current mindset. I'll say that much.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and it's not a great look for the King in the North if all this is going on. And also, just by the way, if you're raiding those coastal towns, you might be surprised to notice the absence of the Ironborn in their longships.
I don't see any off the coast. You'd think they'd be here by now.
Our naval support is somewhat lacking.
I wondered, I think we mentioned this last chapter, the last Arya chapter, that, maybe this attack on the Westernlands has caused the Western lords to put pressure on Tywin to defend their homeland, and that's for sure. Speeding up their marching.
Very much in the same way that the attacks on the Riverlands did the same to the Tullys.
Yes, right. We also learned that Cat didn't return to Bitterbridge because she was afraid of the reception she'd get there after Renly's death. I have to say that's a wise choice. Knowing what we've heard from what Varys has learned from his spies in the area, I think it probably wouldn't have been a good idea to head to Bitterbridge.
She could have been there first, before everybody else.
I think she probably would have, yeah.
Right, and being there first gives you a chance to air your story. And airing her story might have led to her having the Reach and the Stormlands having a different opinion of her. By fleeing, she looks guilty.
You're right. Of course, Loras is also headed to Bitterbridge, and you have to imagine when he gets there angry and looking for blood, that his opinion might trump the sentiment that she's sowed.
For sure.
Getting there first.
I might go to Bitterbridge, tell my story, and then get out of
it. Right. Just want to tell you what happened. Now
I'll tell you what happened, but I'm not sticking around in case nobody believes me.
There's going to be probably a ton of chaos going on at Bitterbridge anyway, because there's lords who have taken different sides, and probably the men at Bitterbridge are trying to figure out whose side their lord is backing and what's going on, who am I angry at, and so
yeah.
Anyway,
so Brienne came with. She rode, slept, ate, and hunted with Cat and her men, but she never really integrated herself into it, which is kind of how we saw her in Renly's Rainbow Guard, sort of aloof from the rest of them.
Right. Yeah. She definitely doesn't seem to be very skilled at integrating herself into groups. In fact, she is introduced later. In this chapter, she's introduced to Edmure and his small entourage, and she was embarrassed by the slightest courtesies that they paid her. And I was thinking about it, and I'm thinking that as a rare warrior woman, she probably expects not to be accepted,
right? Especially
in this environment that we have here in Westeros, obviously. I wondered how Brienne would have taken to Daisy Mormont. She's kind of a similar figure. She's young woman.
Daisy is Marge's
daughter. Yes, she was one of Robb's protectors at the Whispering Wood, I believe.
Right.
So Cat might have wanted to mention Daisy Mormont when she was suggesting to Brienne that she join Robb's cause.
Yeah. I will say, though, one thing, we're talking about her being aloof and alone, but actually Brienne she seems to sort of like tie herself to an individual. So she was very much Renly. I will be Renly's protector. I don't care about friends and the rest of it. And now she's kind of doing the same to Cat to a certain extent.
You're right. Yeah.
She's tying herself to that mast. So it's not she's completely a loner. She wants one person that she can follow to
serve. Yeah, kind of like what Renly said about Barristan Selmy, that he needs a king to serve. Barristan Selmy needs a king to serve. He's out there finding that king that he believes is the true king, which is why he thought maybe he was with Stannis. It's kind of the same mindset. They need someone special to protect and serve.
Yeah. Especially with Selmy, he needs to find another one all the time because he keeps losing them,
Brienne mentions that, or the description mentions that Brienne has her fingers around the hilt of her sword, the sword that had been his. That's in reference to her picking up Renly's sword when the men attacked her in the pavilion. She actually had to leave all of her belongings behind, even that blue armor that she was wearing in the melee.
Oh, yeah.
And another thing about the melee that I recalled is that she was wielding a morning star in the melee.
Right, so she's multiple weapon skills.
Yeah, I guess so. Now that one would have been blunted because it was a melee, but still, she's handy with a morning star as well as a sword, I guess.
Yeah. So Brienne thinks she shouldn't have run, that she's not afraid of Stannis' guards, she's just as good at that as them. Cat asks if she's afraid that people will call her craven for having run. But it feels like...
We discussed last chapter. It was the last Cat chapter. If maybe others from Renly's camp think that she killed Renly because she was afraid of true battle, because she had wanted to stay back and protect Renly, but he put her alongside Loras leading the vanguard. So, that some might who don't respect her as the warrior that we all know she is, might think, oh, she was just scared of true battle.
Yeah. So Brienne's made this vow to Cat. It could come in very handy. I mean, the King in the North's mother seems determined to stay amongst the pigeons rather than back home with her children. And having a 7-foot-tall fighting goddess at your side could be useful, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, yeah, no doubt.
I thought you were going to disagree with me. Oh, no, God.
No, what could she possibly be useful for? No, I definitely... of course, and then Cat says that she dreams of killing Cersei. She's trying to beg Brienne not to go off on this solo mission to kill Stannis. She thinks it's going to just end in Brienne's death. And she says, I get it. I understand. Don't think that I don't dream of killing Cersei. And Brienne says, well, if you dream of killing Cersei, why are you holding me back from killing Stannis? Is it because of what Stannis said at the parley? And first of all, I'd forgotten that Brienne was at the parley. She was Loras's standard bearer, but she was dressed in complete...
so Stannis never met her.
Yeah, he probably didn't even realize that that night was a woman in there.
Yeah. But what did Stannis say? He
said that Robb is next. That I will take care of Robb after I've taken... It's the thought that keeps playing in Cat's head, too. That,
right.
She saw what Stannis is capable of with Melisandre's help. And so Brienne is saying, are you wanting me around because you heard what Stannis said that Robb is next? That's how it came across to me, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, possibly true. I mean, if you think about it, if you've got... fantastic fighter hell-bent on revenge against someone who's coming to kill your son, keeping them near your son could be handy, because when Stannis arrives, now you're off the leash.
Now go get him. Yeah, and she won that melee. She beat Sir Loras. I mean, she might very well be one of the best fighters in all of Westeros. So it's almost like getting Barristan. She doesn't have the cachet that Barristan Selmy has because she doesn't have the history of the things he's accomplished. But as far as ability,
she's only let one king die. Barristan's got a whole catalogue. That does appear to be the prime motivation for ranking someone highly as a Kingsguard.
How many kings have you let die?
So just to get a little bit woke on this, a little bit unsure how to feel about Brienne describing Cat as having a woman's courage. Certainly if that had come out of a male character's mouth, it would have sounded pretty sexist, I feel. But Brienne maybe makes it okay. But I will notice that Brienne is not actually a real person. It's a character in a book by a guy. So
true. Yes. Yeah.
I think George Martin's pronouns are definitely he, him.
I think you're probably right there. Yeah. I think it fits with the misogynistic nature of Westeros.
Yeah.
She was, I think, trying to pay her a compliment.
Oh, yeah, for sure she was.
Because Cat says, I'm no battle commander. Brienne says, I could pledge my allegiance to you. I don't know your son. I can't pledge my serviced him, but I could to you. And she says, well, I'm no battle commander. And that's when she says, well, but you do have a sort of woman's courage. So I think it fits with the mindset of the...
oh, for sure. Yeah.
The environment that they find themselves in.
There's a heart-stopping moment for Cat when she sees the Lannisters hanging from the walls of Riverrun. If Jaime was amongst them, then it's Sayonara, Sansa, and Arya. Which, I was very pleased when I wrote that down, how close Sayonara is to an anagram of Sansa and Arya.
It is
perfect.
Yeah. And you know, Hal Mullen, of course, stated super useful information when he says, they have hanged some Lannisters.
Yeah. It'd be funny if he added, ooh, if one of those is Jaime, they're probably going to kill Sansa and Arya. And you probably wouldn't want that, Cat.
That would be bad for you, I feel like.
So, just being critical here about the Lannister plot to free Jaime, the whole scheme of Tyrion's that was positively belaboured is enacted, failed, and the actors dispatched all off screen. We never see any of it.
Yeah.
But it got a lot of build-up, and if you're just going to throw it away, it feels like something that could have hit the cutting room floor. Or maybe Cat could have come back and witnessed the attempted escape. That might have been more dramatic.
Sure, yeah.
But without that payoff, that original build-up feels a bit of a waste of time. And obviously, with a plot this rich and deep, we're going to have moments like this. But this one stood out for me a little bit. Yeah,
I definitely get that. I was wondering if possibly it's setting up for something still to come. Jaime's now been put in a dark, dank cell. What if he dies down there? What if he gets pneumonia or something?
True.
And so the backstory that you're talking about is Bronn rounded up a thief, a poisoner, a mummer, and a murderer. And then had Varys put those four into the 100-person Lannister guard that was being led. That led Sir Cleos and Ned's Bones. But it also, doing this also gave Tyrion an excuse to get Cersei to agree to part with her Lannister guard. Because he said, what he said to Varys is, what you're going to tell my sister when she complains is that 4 of these men alone will be watched vigilantly, but 4 among 100 can lose themselves. So maybe these 4 men were really just meant to get Cersei away from her guard, and that's where something plot-related could happen.
Yeah. So what's happened to the 100 men now?
Well, I guess most of them are still there waiting around but Sir Cleos has now been imprisoned. So maybe,
so have they been in prison too?
Yeah, maybe Sir Cleos says, I had nothing to do with this. He was thrown into Jaime's old cell when Jaime was downgraded to a dark cell. Maybe he's just being held there until they can determine whether to send him back with new demands or what. Yeah. But Edmure did say that some of the Lannister men joined the fighting when the chaos happened. Even though they had no swords. They were hung alongside the 4. But he mentions hanging the 4 beside those who tried to free Jaime. But he only specifically mentions the thief, the mummer, and the murderer. There is no mention of the poisoner. So I wonder if the poisoner might still be out there. Maybe that's where the plot might advance from this.
Good point. Although, of course, if the poisoner hadn't got a chance to poison someone before he was hung, it would be difficult to know that he was a poisoner.
Right, exactly. That could also be the situation.
Unless they wore T-shirts. I'm the poisoner.
I'm the poisoner. I'm with poisoner with an arrow pointing to the left. But Edmure's doing exactly what Ned accused him of back in A Game of Thrones, when the day that Ned sat the Iron Throne. He accused him of having a heart that was too big. And back then, Ned felt that Edmure spread his defense too thin in trying to protect every inch of the Riverlands, rather than amass a force to be reckoned with to meet the invasion from the west. And now, as Kat points out, he's filling his castle with small folk who are basically just hungry mouths to feed. I guess you could argue that's kind of the point of a castle is to pull your people in when you need to keep them safe.
Right, that's where I'm going here, because if Tywin comes back, which apparently he is, and the small folk are huddled at the doors of Riverrun, then Tywin would have the opportunity to, and we definitely know he's got the stomach to, attack those small folk, and then Edmure and Coincide can either watch their citizens butchered,
right,
or perhaps be drawn out of the walls of Riverrun. It would be a terrible idea to refuse these people entry to the castle, to me.
Yeah. But
point. Maybe you could do it at the last minute. That's the one thing. Maybe have them set up a shanty town outside the door so that they're not now hungry mouths to feed. They're only hungry mouths to feed when the castle becomes besieged.
Good point. Yeah. Martyn Rivers and his outriders, you'd think, would get an idea of when to expect the Lannisters. Yeah.
Right. And you tell the shanty town, when they come, you've got 2 minutes.
Be ready. Do drills.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Do a drill for this, like every day.
Yeah, like a fire drill, evacuation drill. Yep. Well, so Robb, once again, this is the second time he's ordered Cat to the Twins to scout his prospective wives. And Cat is not fooled by this. She knows it's, one, an attempt to get her safe, which she appreciates and understands, but two, get her out of his hair and let him be king and not be king who has a mom who's influencing his decisions.
Yeah, I think she's, again, not going to listen to him. So.
No.
Yeah. He's not even there to give the order this time. This is second hand, so she can definitely ignore this one. Edmure's pulling the strings is a little bit random. He's the worst part for me, perhaps, is the moving the garrison from the Twins. It seems a bit premature.
It does.
The phrase dying in the cause is one thing, but they have died on both sides of this battle.
Exactly. Right.
And we know that Walder's loyalty is always up for sale, so I'm definitely with Cat and Robb on that one. They should have stayed put. That was Helm Tallheart with 400 archers and swordsmen.
Right, and he has sent them to Roose Bolton, to help him take Harrenhal. Now Helm Tallheart, just last Theon chapter, we met his son, his only son, Benfred, was killed by Dagmar Cleftjaw, by Aaron Damphair. He was drowned in the sea. And we know that Theon wants Dagmar to siege Torrhen Square, which is the seat of House Tallheart. So this is the Tallheart that is missing from Torrhen Square at the moment. He also, though, has a 9 to 10-year-old daughter named Eddara. I wondered if that might possibly be named after Eddard Stark, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. So yeah, I definitely am with Cat on this one, that this was a strategically poor idea.
Yeah, we know that Walder is known for trying to back the winning side of a conflict, usually involving him showing up late. And like you said, there's so many Freys that they're fighting on both sides. So yes, some Freys have been showing Stark and Tully loyalty. But then, on the other hand, you've got Cleos Frey. He was fighting on behalf of the Lannisters. And Edmure says in this chapter, Cleos is half Lannister, half Frey, and all liar. So making that statement alone.
The one thing I will say is that the war has moved south of the Twins now. The Twins has become less strategically important than it was earlier in the war.
At the moment, yes, right.
Yes, it could become important again. I mean, for instance, if things go badly for the North and they're forced to retreat, they would need to cross back up the Twins to get back to the King's Road to head north.
Yes.
And that could become a hammer and anvil situation if they're being pursued by Tywin.
Right. Yeah, good point.
And the Twins is close to them, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the young Walder Freys as possible hostages in Winterfell. But, that's true. They could be used as leverage. Now, Lord Walder has so many grandsons and great-grandsons. I don't know if he'd be willing to spare a few or not, but, Yeah,
Theon Greyjoy was a real hostage, No matter how horrible Balon is to Theon, he was his only son.
Right.
Walder probably couldn't pick the two out that have gone north. He probably has already forgotten who they are,
Even though they have his name.
Right. That probably just confuses the matter even more. We sent 2 of the Walders up there? Which 2?
Not me, right?
Right.
We do get a little news here that Roose Bolton has married a Frey.
Yeah.
So,
that's good. One more tie between the North and the Freys,
true.
I guess.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the things that Edmure points out as a reason why they should trust the Freys and move those 400 men who are there to keep them honest to somewhere more useful.
Yeah. So I almost questioned this last time. As the crow flies, you don't need to go anywhere near Riverrun to get to the Golden Tooth from Harrenhal. It's considerably out of your way. But the thing is, Tywin's army isn't really a crow, and so I was looking at the maps, and really the only feasible route for an army, although, hey, you can go goat trails if you're careful. You know?
They need a lion to sniff out a goat trail for them.
The problem is the lion's just going to eat the goats.
He's going to just stop along the way.
So the only feasible route is back north up the King's Road and then hang a left at the crossroads to take the River Road west, and that does run right by Riverrun.
Right.
So basically, Tywin is going to have to run two gauntlets, and this is why I think strategically what Edmure is proposing for Roose Bolton to do is not very wise. What Roose Bolton should do is just try to hold the crossroads, just make that left turn as difficult as possible for Tywin's army. It's quite defensible.
Right.
And you could make life very miserable for that army as it tries to make that turn.
Certainly, yeah. So Edmure's plan, as I gather it, is he wants Roose to let Tywin slip past him, then rush down, take Harrenhal, and then pin Tywin between Riverrun and Harrenhal, and then when Robb comes up from the west, then crush them.
All right, so maybe you don't run that gauntlet. Maybe Roose just waves him on his way, say, "Hey, you beat me once, but I'm still here." But the second gauntlet is you're going to have to wander straight past Riverrun, which will be heavily defended, unless Robb took every last soul with him west, and we're seeing that he did not. There's plenty of fighters still here in Riverrun.
Right, yes, we're seeing plenty of Lord's banners waving out there.
Now, I don't...
Oh, in fact, I think Edmure says that when all his banners have arrived, he'll have about 8,000 men. Right, okay.
But did Edmure specifically say he was planning to ride out of Riverrun? Because the thing is, I guess if you don't ride out of Riverrun, you can't stop them riding past.
Yeah, he was very vague. He said something along the lines of, if Tywin tries to cross the red fork of the Trident, I'll destroy him like Robert did to Rhaegar when he tried to cross the Trident. So he's a little bit vague on exactly how that's going to play out. We do know that they've got spikes and things in the ground where you would ford the red fork. So, but yeah, it certainly seems like he plans on giving him a fight one way or another. It's a little bit unclear exactly how.
But I think Edmure should harry him. I mean, if you don't harry him, then you're just letting a huge army descend on Robb.
Right. Yes. He does have some points. Edmure says, these are Tully lands. If Tywin thinks to cross it unbloodied, I'm going to teach him a hard lesson. And you're right. It's hard to sit back, watch this as this enemy rolls through your land on its way to do battle with your king, nephew, son, depending on the perspective here. So, but Cat's counterpoint is, you're going to teach him a hard lesson like you did his son, because Jaime cut his host to Edmure's host to pieces the last time that Edmure offered him battle. And you just can't imagine that Edmure is any match for meeting Tywin in open battle. So, maybe they could set traps and things that would cost his force some damage as they roll through.
Right. That's what you got to do. Use Riverrun as a base, and then just sort of like brief targeted sorties, traps, guerrilla tactics, basically.
Right, yes. Take out as many forces as you can without going head to head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Slow them down, make life difficult, pick a few of them off. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Now
and maybe that's what Edmure is planning. So let's not just assume Edmure's terrible at everything just because everyone says he is.
Cat's definitely nervous. But the history that Cat's talking about is Tywin easily beat Edmure's thinly scattered border forces, which we mentioned just a little bit ago. And Jaime crushed Lords Vance and Piper below the Golden Tooth, where he then advanced on Riverrun, destroyed Edmure's force below the walls of Riverrun, and then took Edmure prisoner and began the siege of Riverrun. And then the siege was lifted and Edmure freed at the Battle of the Camps when Robb rode in and cleared out the siege after Jaime was taken in the Whispering Wood. So that's all that the background that Kat's thinking about when she's thinking, maybe we should just sit in our castle and watch him roll by.
Yeah, I mean, his track record is poor, but, you can learn from your mistakes.
True.
So Roose Bolton's to take Harrenhal. We talked about this last time. The size of Harrenhal, the small force of Lorches that's been left behind. Maybe Bolton's crew could scale an undefended section or break down the lightly defended entrances. The castle is huge. Harren thought it was impregnable, apart from dragons, of course. He didn't say that, but we know that now. It might not be that easy. Edmure's idea is if Harrenhal falls, then Tywin has no safe retreat. They can pin them between Harrenhal and Riverrun. As you said, as Robb comes back from the west, we're squeezing the army and he's got nowhere to go. But it does feel... I'm stealing your point here, but I like this point a lot, so I'm going to make it sound like it was mine. You don't need Harrenhal. You could let him go past Riverrun and then fortify the roads back. So now trap him there, and then you don't have to spread your forces between Riverrun and Harrenhal. You bring all your forces. In fact, Roose Bolton should just march along behind Tywin's forces.
Yes.
About 50 yards removed, occasionally firing arrows into their backs.
That'll do it. Yeah, just
like camp followers.
Yes, just blend in with the camp followers.
In fact, it would be pretty cruel to murder all the camp followers. And every time they camp at night, it's like, where's the cook gone? Where's the prostitutes?
That's one way to do it. Yeah, I've been thinking about the strategic advantage of Riverrun and Harrenhal. That area between the two. I guess if you let Tywin get past Riverrun, the fear is if he gets past Riverrun, he could just make his way into the west, regroup, get back to Casterly Rock, maybe take on Robb's army in the west, or I guess you're letting him get back to his home territory if you let him slip past Riverrun. Now, if Robb marches east, Robb doesn't have quite the manpower to possibly face Tywin head on. But if Roose Bolton and Edmure are coming up from the eastern side and Robb is coming from the western side, it might be
I still think the key to that is Robb takes the Golden Tooth from its undefended western side. Yeah. And then you've got something which we know people can't.
Oh, yeah. If you have Tywin between the Golden Tooth and Riverrun, that's a pretty rough spot, and you don't have to bother taking Harrenhal at that point.
Right, and spreading your forces again. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
so moving on. So the Raven from Storm's End suggests that Stannis is yet again not riding against King's Landing. No, he's going to besiege the impregnable. He knows only too well how impregnable it is. Storm's End.
Yes.
To get to his bastard nephew, who is, by my calculation, 87th in line to the throne, to one of the claimants of the throne. He's not even close to being a claimant of the throne. Meanwhile, a cuckoo sits the actual Iron Throne.
Right.
And any day could be bolstered by 50,000 men from the Reach.
Yeah. Yes.
And maybe Tywin splits his force and sends some of his force down to King's Landing as well.
Yep.
There's a golden opportunity here, Stannis.
Sure is. A lot of this at Storm's End doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Courtney Penrose refusing to open the gates to Stannis itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because with Renly dead, Stannis is the rightful lord to Storm's End, regardless of how Renly died. Brothers squabble, Renly is dead. Stannis is the only... Unless you believe that Joffrey is the true king, then maybe you believe that he is the true Lord of Storm's End, I guess. But Stannis is at your gates. He is the oldest living member of the Baratheon family, and he is saying, listen, I don't even want to kill you guys. I just want you to yield the castle and hand me over the boy. Now, I get how Courtney Penrose could think that Stannis wants Edric Storm because he wants to remove another possible threat to his claim. But we know that he wants Edric Storm because he wants to show him off and say, this is what a Robert Baratheon son looks like. Look at those two in King's Landing. Do they look anything like this kid?
But why doesn't Stannis shout that at the walls?
Right.
I don't want to hurt him. I thought he was trying to kill him. Oh, I was with Courtney Penrose on this one. But that makes a lot more sense. I feel better now.
And he says Stannis says he's giving Storm's End 2 weeks to surrender. That's 2 weeks. You could already be sitting the Iron Throne in 2 weeks.
Right. And send the gold cloaks to get Edric Storm.
Right. Once you are sitting on the Iron Throne, Courtney Penrose is going to open his gates. We've said this 100 times. Anyway.
Here's a king coming to lift the siege at Storm's End. It's me again. Not only your liege lord, but now also your king. How about you open those gates? So now we go to the scene where Cat goes to her father, and her father mistakes her for Lysa. So who was it that Hoster Tully did not want anywhere near his daughter? If he thought he was talking to Cat, we would have assumed that was Littlefinger, because we know Littlefinger had it bad for Cat,
right?
And almost got killed for it. But Hoster clearly thinks he's talking to Lysa. So my question is, did Peter dip more than one of his little fingers? that sounds ruder than I meant it to. Or did Lysa have some ill-advised suitor of her own?
Right. Well, obviously we get no indication of who it is in this chapter, but we do have a little bit of historical context clues for one possibility. Back in Tyrion 4 of this book, when Tyrion was giving all his little speeches, his little plans to Grand Maester Pycelle and then Littlefinger and then Varys to find out who the mole was. Yeah. Littlefinger told Tyrion that he took both the girls' maidenheads. Now, when he said that, Tyrion thought it was a smooth lie, in quotes. And after Littlefinger was injured in the duel with Brandon Stark over Cat's hand in marriage, Hoster had Littlefinger sent packing back to the Fingers. And we also know that Littlefinger has been spreading rumors around court that he took Cat's maidenhead. Tyrion told her that on the way to the Vale, which she strongly denied it. So he could very well be lying about both, because Cat says he's lying about me. But so it very well could just be, as Cat suggests, a tradesman's son, a squire. And she said Lysa was very big into singers, so it could have been a singer as well.
Okay, so maybe this is not a big story point. I got suspicious it was Littlefinger, and so I was like, that's why I was wanting to bring it up. But I will say, if it was Littlefinger, it's surprising to me that Cat wouldn't already be aware, True. As the sister.
Yeah, and they shared, as we learn in this chapter, they shared a bedchamber together, so they must have been fairly close. You'd think they would have shared such things. It very well could be. There's evidence to support that if Littlefinger was telling the truth, it could be Littlefinger. But we also know he is a proven liar, and Cat says that he's lying about having taken her maidenhead. So it could have nothing to do with Littlefinger at all. But another thing about this conversation that I found curious is, what is Hoster asking forgiveness for so vehemently? He thinks he's talking to Lysa, so clearly it has something to do with her. Is it just the marriage to Jon Arryn? We know Cat mentions here that Jon Arryn is 20 years older than Hoster. So he was significantly older than Lysa. You might feel the need to apologize to that about that, I guess, and ask for forgiveness.
But Jon Arryn was a good guy, it seems. So
exactly.
Apart from him being old.
So it doesn't seem like he would be asking. He is like begging for forgiveness. So it doesn't seem like pairing your daughter up with in this age where they arrange marriages in this world here in Westeros, that will be something you'd be asking for forgiveness for so strongly. So maybe it does have something to do with the strapling, wretched boy.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So the Maester confirms what we've already surmised, that Hoster's days are very much numbered, that he can't keep him alive for much longer.
Right.
Then we get the touching scene when Cat sees Ned's bones. I was quite moved by this whole thing, actually. And Cat asks the Silent Sisters to take the bones on to Winterfell, and Hal Mullen will escort them as captain of the guards.
And you know what he said to that? He said, "We'll need to ride north to Winterfell."
Yeah.
She said, "Hal, I need you to escort these Ned's bones back to Winterfell." And he said, "We'll need to ride north to Winterfell." But so about the Cat seeing Ned's bones, she mentions that it's not Ned's sword that he is holding, that they have laid with his bones. And last we saw Ice, Sir Illian has it. You have to imagine at some point that'll go to someone of more importance if it's not returned back to the Starks, because the Lannisters have been trying to replace Bright Roar, which was their ancestral Valyrian steel sword, for hundreds of years. It was lost before the War of Conquest. So now they have one in their possession, and they have their headsman hanging on to it. So I can't imagine that'll hold for long.
That's a good point. Yes, I think that's headed Lannister way. All right, you got some background for us?
I do. This chapter, although it spanned all kinds of conversations in several locations, didn't exactly provide a lot of useful background opportunities. And we're actually running long, so I'm only going to do 2 of the 3 that I have here. But so Edmure meets Cat with his entourage of men who have served Lord Hoster all their lives and are of similar age to the Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. The first man is Sir Desmond Grell. He is the master at arms of Riverrun. And we don't know much about House Grell, but their Riverland house and semi-canon sources suggest that their sigil is 3 red martlets on a white diagonal strip on a blue background. Now, a fast fact about martlets. According to Wikipedia, in English heraldry, a martlet is a mythical bird without feet, which never roosts from the moment of its drop birth until its death fall. And martlets are proposed to be continuously on the wing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
I found that interesting. I didn't know exactly what a martlet was, so I looked it up. The second man is, now Roy Dotrice pronounces this name Authorides Wayne. It's a very tricky name to say. I'm sure it could be said many different ways.
I said Eutherides when I read it.
Yeah. So anyway, he is the steward to Lord Hoster, and House Wayne is a Riverlands house. As their surname is Wayne, you might guess that their sigil is 4 wagon wheels quartered. Each alternates blue-gray in the wheel or the background. So, one has blue background and a gray wheel. The next quarter has a blue wheel with a gray background, and so on. A notable Wayne in Westerosi history was Lord Christopher Wayne. During the Faith Militant Uprising, Lord Christopher took up arms on behalf of the High Septon and Starry Sept against the Iron Throne. He fought in the battle at the Green Fork alongside Lord Rupert Falwell and other knights from the Westerlands and Riverlands, as well as hundreds of poor fellows against the royal army led by King Maegor I Targaryen himself. Now, unfortunately, Christopher's fate in that battle has been lost to history. The third man in the group was Sir Robin Ryger. He's captain of the guard at Riverrun. But like I said, we're running long today, so we'll save him and House Ryger for another episode.
Comparison with the television show. Just an aside on the comparison with the television show. In the last Cat chapter, we asked if Stannis and his 100,000 new troops meant death for the Lannisters at King's Landing, had he not decided to have a 2-week sojourn at the walls of Storm's End. In the TV show, in a scene in Harrenhal, Kevin Lannister spells out to Tywin, "The family should flee. King's Landing will fall in hours once Stannis arrives. We can still save them." Tywin, hard-nosed as ever, says that the king needs to stay and fight.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the showrunners feel like it'll only take hours for
Right.
Stannis to take this
Once
city.
the 2 weeks is up, it'll only take hours.
Right.
The scene where Brienne pledges to Cat is captured pretty much verbatim, but it's just the two of them travelling. There's no entourage, it's just the two of them together. And then Cat's next scene is not with Martyn Rivers, but with Robb. She goes to Robb in the Westerlands, it seems, although where they are is kind of very vague here. And Roose Bolton is present, which makes it even weirder, They're all over the place.
He is.
Sir Alton Lannister, who replaces Sir Cleos Frey, returns with Cersei's reply from King's Landing. He doesn't have a counteroffer or a entourage of assassins. He simply says that she tore it in half.
That's how it ends.
That's it. Yeah. But there is a sort of like a correspondence here between the book and the show, because Jaime tries to escape on his own, but he's ultimately successful. And actually...
Unsuccessful.
Yes, did I say successful? He's ultimately unsuccessful. And actually, this is where the Karstark heir is killed. It's in Jaime's attempt to escape. And so Rickard Karstark's anger at Jaime is even stronger in the TV show, because it's happened right now, practically in front of him.
Okay.
So it flares very bright.
Yeah.
We're not in Riverrun, so no Edmure, no Hosta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just randomly on the road somewhere.
Yeah. Pedantry Corner. Well, I was going to complain about the wasting time on Edric Storm, but you've given me a reason for actually wanting him. But again, who are you trying to convince? Are you going to get the Lannisters to step down? All right, you got it.
He looks much more like my father.
Yeah. It's not the 100,000 men you have arrayed around you that's making me give up. It's that kid there.
Yep. Yes, that whole thing makes it, there's definitely some pedantic issues there.
And also Cat's journey time from the Stormlands.
I like your line
back to
here.
Riverrun. Yes, it was good of Gandalf to lend her Shadowfax for the journey.
I was thinking about the fact that Cat's getting a little bit concerned about the plans that Edmure has, and she says, "Can we get a letter to Robb?" And the response is that Robb's in the field and a bird can't reach him. But we know he's taken castles, so send a bird to one of the castles and then have a messenger reach Robb in the field. It seems like it would be quite poor strategy to be entirely cut off from any news from Riverrun or Winterfell if you're the king.
Right. One of the first things you would do after capturing a castle in the west is send a bird to Riverrun saying, "Contact us here."
Right. Send any urgent news here and I'll have a messenger reach me.
Right.
So I just thought that was oddly poor planning for someone who's made pretty good decisions thus far in Robb.
News and notes.
Well, Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion in the Game of Thrones TV show, will soon be hitting the big screen. He stars as Cyrano de Bergerac in the upcoming film Cyrano. The film just made its debut at the Telluride Film Festival in September to pretty good reviews. It has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.9 on IMDb. The U.S. release is expected to be December 31st of this year, although I did see a few things that said Christmas Day, but most of the things that I saw were December 31st.
Okay. That's very interesting, actually. I think he's well cast for that. I'm always interested because Cyrano de Bergerac, the original, is in French rhyming couplets. The whole book is rhyming couplets.
Oh, okay.
And so, will they rhyme will they rhyme the English version? Because, of course, you can't translate rhymes.
Right.
Expect them to rhyme.
Yeah.
But actually, Anthony Burgess, who wrote A Clockwork Orange, he translated Cyrano de Bergerac and he kept the rhyming structure.
Oh, okay.
Which must have been quite a challenge. Because, of
yes,
course,
I'm
you're
sure
trying
it
to
was.
Simultaneously get the message across, but also change the words so that they rhyme in English too.
Yeah. Also, House of the Dragon has its first Lannister cast. A pair of them, in fact. Jefferson Hall has been cast to play twin brothers Jason and Tywin Lannister. Jason was Lord of Casterly Rock in the days leading up to and then during the Dance of the Dragons, and his twin brother Tywin was Master of Ships to King Viserys I Targaryen. So we've got a Lannister sighting. Now this is not technically a review on one of our podcast locations. This is in reference to this past Thursday being our 2-year anniversary of our show. Now, of course, when this episode goes out, it will be several weeks past our 2-year anniversary. Our anniversary was October 7th, and I just put some out on the Discord server and Facebook. I put a message out to our listeners thanking them for 2 years of enjoyable communication and exchange with them, and thank them for listening. And so you could read what Stevos said here.
Oh, so Stevos, the Sword of the Morning, said, "You guys have a top-notch product. Thank you. I look forward to every Monday to listen to the cast while I pretend to be working." Very good. I like that.
That was on the Discord server. So thank you, Stevos.
Thank you, Stevos. All right, let's conclude. So Cat raced, possibly flew back north. She extracted a very useful vow from Brienne.
Yeah.
And she did get back in time to see her father, which she was worried about when she left.
Yeah, she's acquired mostly good news thus far, from Robb winning in the West, Tywin quitting Harrenhal, and Jaime neither dead nor escaped. So those are two useful things for her.
Yes. Look, you'd like to think that neither of those would happen while you were gone, but given that both of them seemed possible now, she was probably relieved to hear that.
Yeah. Although she did mention she was less interested in Robb's victory in the West because she was less interested in successes of the past and more concerned about challenges in the future. So, I guess.
She's concerned by her brother's strategy and softness. She wishes her uncle Blackfish was there.
Yeah, Edmure is making a lot of decisions which seem to be without consulting the king or council.
Yeah.
It's mentioned that he can't get a bird to Robb to ask, how do you want me to proceed here? So he's doing things like sending Helman Tallheart and 400 men there to keep the phrase honest at the Twins out of the Twins. Yeah. And, he's planning on giving Tywin and his force a battle of some sort when they roll past it. And whether we agree with that or not, he should probably have these decisions coming from king and council than just from, I think this is a good idea.
Right. Yeah. Kat is ordered to the Twins to pick out a daughter-in-law, but we're pretty sure she's not going to agree to that. She's going to sit shiver with her father. And that way, hopefully, she'll see Robb again when Robb returns, having pancaked Tywin between himself and Riverrun.
Yes.
I have to say, I'm with her on that, because how long could it take to pick out a daughter-in-law? There aren't that many Freys.
Right.
You don't need a month.
You have to factor age range in as well. I think we did this. We either did this for Robb or Arya back when it was first announced, and there's a decent amount of possible options, but not that many. Not that you would need months to do it or something. Well, that was a long one. Thank you all for sticking with us through this one.
This was the second year of our podcast. Was this end?
So let's wrap it up here. And as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now Discord. And you can also listen to us on Facebook, don't forget.
That's true. And if you could leave us a review and a 5-star rating, that would help boost our visibility and help more people come into the fold. We'd really appreciate it.
Sure would.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.